how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fear relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. My chains are gone, I've been set free. My God, my Savior has ransomed me. The love of God is greater far than tongue or pen can ever tell. It goes beyond the highest star and reaches to the lowest hell. The guilty pair, bound down with care, God gave His Son to win. His erring child He reconciled and pardoned from His sin. Oh, love of God, how rich and pure, how measureless and strong, it shall forevermore endure, the saints and angels' song.
What a friend we have in Jesus. All our sins and griefs to bear. What
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Mark from the Potterville Campus in Sycamore Creek, and I'm here with Tom, and we are having a little Backstage Pass to talk about this series that we just finished, How Sweet the Sound. I'm excited about talking with you about this, Tom. How about you?
I'm pretty excited as well. It's been a good series. We're trying it at a strange time, 9 o'clock.
At 9 o'clock, yeah. I mean, what better you could be doing at 9 o'clock, right? I mean, this is, you're ready to sit down and watch Netflix or read a book or watch you and me talk about the sound. Yeah,
you can continue to binge watch the next episode of whatever show you're watching. I'm watching Runaways, by the way, on Disney Plus. I don't know, what are you watching right now, Mark?
Jan and I just finished The Queen's Gambit, which, if you haven't seen it, it's super fun. It's all about chess, and it makes it exciting. Your family would really like it, Tom. I think
my boys love playing chess.
I wouldn't recommend this for kids, but
yeah, my boys have legitimately beat me in chess, but not recently.
Okay,
mostly because they got more advanced than I thought they were, so I wasn't paying as close of attention.
That'll happen. Well, if anyone you're watching, you have questions for us, feel free to put them in the comments. Let us know. If you're watching, let us know in the comments as well. Say good evening. We'd love to hear from you. Tom, we wrapped up this series today, How Sweet the Sound. And this Backstage Pass, we're going to look back and reflect on this past series. What would you say, Tom, is like one thing or one big idea from this series? And yeah, take a step. You usually let me take a step, but I'm gonna let you take a step.
Yeah. So I don't know if there was like a theme that unified the whole series, other than that we looked at songs that have passed the test of time. So, when I think about songs like outside of, for example, sacred music, for me, like U2's Joshua Tree passes the test of time. I mean, that album is just spectacular.
It's a great album.
But these songs have passed longer than just decades worth of time, like a couple decades. Some of these songs are hundreds of years old and have passed the test of time. But I think then we looked at the stories behind the people who wrote them, and in almost every instance, we learned that these songs that passed the test of time came out of horrendous suffering, and these beautiful descriptions of God's love and God's grace and talking to God. I mean, those things like came out of some pretty messed up stuff.
Yes, they did. Definitely. That was one of my favorite parts of, probably skipping ahead here, was hearing those stories, though, of the background for the hymns. I think, too, throughout this series, we also kind of took a deeper look at lyrics. We don't always take a look at lyrics in this series. Not only did we look at classic hymns and hear the background, I think we also got to hear some of the lyrics and like take a deeper look at them. Because sometimes, we just sing them and just, move from one song to the next. They might be meaningful in the moment, but we don't really slow down and understand the lyrics.
By the way, did you see the gorilla come into the frame and back out?
Yes.
I had a 7-year-old streaker come in to say goodnight to me.
Okay.
He was dressed from the waist down, but
that's good.
You know what? You're absolutely right about lyrics. My wife gives me a really hard time about this. That I'll be singing a pop song. I'll know like all the lyrics. I'll be singing along, and she's like, "Do you have any idea what you are singing?" And I haven't paid any attention to what the song means. Here's my other associate. Good night.
So where is everyone?
Hey, Micah.
This Mark. All right.
So nobody decided to come on?
No, they're on Facebook. This is a word of
Yeah,
encouragement
Zoom call.
for my son. Where is everybody? Nobody decided to come on? Can you close
He
the door?
wants to see a Zoom call with a whole bunch of people on this.
Yeah, he's used to seeing a Zoom call, not a restream broadcast. So,
yeah, I think slowing down and looking at the lyrics has been really helpful. It harkens me back to the Lord's Prayer series that we did, where we slowed down and looked at the Lord's Prayer more carefully. I think the same thing is true with the hymns. There's a richness to them, and a lot of times they're almost poetic.
I'm still praying the Lord's Prayer differently, with a different rhythm and pauses and stuff, because of slowing so much down. And now you've got me thinking, like, I think that I will be, when we sing these songs next, some of the stuff that we learned will be there, kind of a deeper, newer appreciation.
Yeah. Well, that kind of ties into our next question, Tom, which is, what was a favorite moment, point, or teaching that kind of tied into the big idea of the series?
Yeah, so I think back to last week with the hymn "What a Friend We Have in Jesus," and in our, we had Anna Maria and her kids, which they refer to themselves as the Horn section. Their last name is Horn. They did an amazing version of this hymn, this song, a gospel version. And if you haven't listened to it, you got to go to our YouTube channel and listen to it. What a Friend We Have in Jesus. And although I think that one, that's called "Take It to the Lord in Prayer," is what they actually, because that's what Kathy focused on.
Yeah.
And Joseph Scriven was engaged twice, and in both times lost his fiance to misfortune. And then wrote this poem that was, he didn't write it to make it be a hymn or a song. Kathy suggested that his mom got a hold of it and was like, "Look at what my son wrote. Look at what my son wrote." But for that to come out of such pain, that was just really powerful to me to hear that. I haven't had anything. I mean, my wife Sarah was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2018. She's doing fine now. I lost both parents that year, but they were young for United States standard of life, but they were still. My stepmom was 68. My dad was 70. This wasn't like on the edge of getting married at the beginning of your life death. So I don't know, I ask myself the question, would I be able to write something like that, or have that kind of faith or perseverance of faith in the midst of such incredible suffering? That really moved me.
Yeah.
Encouraged me as well, I think, to, when the suffering hits, to remain steadfast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like you said, it's incredible to hear those stories, in particular Scriven's story, and to be able to produce those lyrics from such a difficult life and so much tragedy. The favorite moment for me is actually, I'm going to go to when you and I preached together.
Yeah.
At Birchfield Park.
That was fun. I love it whenever we get to do those conversation sermons.
It was a lot of fun, and I'm really glad that we didn't keep the singing that we did in the video. I was really glad too that didn't make it into your roll-in that you just showed before this. Mm-hmm. No one would have wanted to hear that. But I really like, Amazing Grace. It was a great way to start the series. That is such an important and incredible topic, Amazing Grace. And then I really appreciated the way we tried to simplify it with "You were but God by grace." Yeah. And in particular, hearing John Newton's story and how, man, was he ever a jerk. I mean, jerk is probably not a strong enough word for where he was. And then for his life to completely transform so that he's an abolitionist and he's helping dismantle the slave trade in England, and then produces this amazing hymn. It's to me, it's one of those Christian stories at their best, where someone's life is headed in one direction And because of God's grace, it goes in a completely different direction. And
you got to wonder, I think both you and I learned this sort of biographical piece of John Newton, that he was enslaved himself to a African princess.
yes,
And it was on the boat ride back to England after being freed from that. You got to wonder, like, how many social injustices would be resolved if the person who is the oppressed, because he's running slave ships before that, if they walked a mile in the shoes of the people they're oppressing. I mean, you and me ourselves, like if we walked in the mile shoes of somebody who's struggling, and how God would turn our lives around in the midst of that.
Yes. Yeah, it's interesting to think of it. I think too, so John Newton's story resonates with me so much because there's definitely areas of my life where I need God's grace, and there's definitely areas that I've messed up, but I don't have as dramatic of a story as John Newton. And those dramatic stories are just so eye-catching to me, and like they're so dramatic, and yet in hearing his story, it does make me think of, where do I need God's amazing grace? And it makes me have a deeper appreciation for the lyrics of that song, knowing his story, and all that he went through.
There's a way that I think what we did was we did what we normally do every week with the Bible, is we give some historical context to what this thing was. These things were not written in a vacuum.
No.
And the Bible wasn't written in a vacuum. And when you understand some of the historical context around it, it makes what was powerful even more powerful. And I think that's true in the case of really pretty much anything, but these hymns especially.
Absolutely. Yeah. And if I were to choose a second favorite moment, I might also throw in Kevin is pretty amazing to be able to preach a sermon on a song and record a music video for it.
It makes you and I look kind of like slackers.
Yeah, basically. It's kind of intimidating that he can do both of those things. So is there something new that you learned during this series, Tom? And how is it changing the way you follow Jesus?
Yeah, I don't know that it was exactly new, but I keep going back to Kathy's message. This is fun. Like, both of us are pointing to like people who are not, well, Kevin is a pastor.
We got to show off Potterville during this series. I was
excited. You're right. I didn't even think about that.
I'm
kind of the weak link in this, because you had 3 people from Potterville doing preaching, but it also showed the depth of our bench. And Kathy's message was just really powerful. It's like, what I was trying to, I'm the one who filmed that. And what I was trying to create visually in the midst of that was this sense of walking and just having a conversation with Kathy. And Kathy is like this wise grandmother and so approachable. And there was this moment in her message where she described how you could take it to the Lord in prayer, and how many of us probably pray more than we even think about it. Because she just walked through, like, you wake up in the morning. Thank you, Lord, for a new day. Thank you that I woke up with breath in my lungs. Thank you, Lord, for this food. Lord, help me with my children, not lose my temper. And she just walked through the day all the way to bedtime with these short little breath prayers. And it gave a really beautiful vision for how you could pray without ceasing, not in a way that is really like you're sitting on your knees 24 hours a day in some kind of prostrated posture.
Yes. Yeah, the way you described it felt really natural.
Yeah, it was really beautiful to hear her say that. And I came across this quote, a couple of things. One was Teresa Avila quote in a book I'm reading, where Teresa Avila is this, medieval nun. And she wrote a book called Interior Castle, I think is the name of it. And she says, prayer is nothing else than being on terms of friendship with God. prayer is nothing else than being on terms of friendship with God. That just makes it so simple. And Kathy's message did such a good job of kind of hammering that. But then I've gone back lately as well to Thomas R. Kelly's book. Thomas, this is not R. Kelly the singer, but Thomas R. Kelly. And he was a Quaker mystic. And he has this book called Testament of Devotion. And the first part of it, he talks about continuously and simultaneously paying attention to God and the world around us. Continuously and simultaneously paying attention to God and the world around us. And Kathy just put flesh on those ideas with that simple little, you followed her through. It sounded, she wasn't putting it as autobiographical, but it sounded like we were listening to how her prayer life goes throughout the day.
Yeah.
How about you?
For me, I really was captivated by Kevin's sermon and the tension that we have around the incomprehensible nature of God, that God is like both knowable and unknowable.
Yeah.
And that fascinates me as a scientist, because, you know, I love to figure things out. I love to learn new things. I think it's one of the reasons why I've had a successful transition from doing breast cancer research to being a pastor, because as a breast cancer researcher, there are so many things we don't know. Like, you know, I could easily work a whole career, 30, 40 years, and never run out of questions. And that part of God resonates with me, that God is like also incomprehensible, and that I could be a pastor for 30, 40 years and there will still be questions that we have about God. And yet at the same time, there are things that we can know. And I think I take that as well from my breast cancer research career, like being able to rely on the things that we know about. And I like wrestling with that tension and living in the middle of that tension between knowing and unknowable. And what Kevin did for me was sort of increase my awareness of it. And it's given me more compassion for people who are on both sides of that tension. And so when I interact with someone who's more comfortable on the knowing side, I'm more compassionate for that. And when there's someone who's wrestling with the unknowing side, I feel more compassion for that now. And where I really liked where Kevin landed that, which is that we seek hard after God. And I've been thinking about that and reflecting on that and hoping to live that out moving forward, where I continue to seek hard after God every day.
That reminds me, like when he was talking about that, I was hearkening back to the Lord's Prayer series where we talked about our Father who art in heaven. And that word heaven can mean like the heavens, the universe, the full thing. I think this was your point in the message, if I'm remembering correctly. But then also that word heaven can be translated the atmosphere, the air right around you that you breathe. So God is, when we say our Father who art in heaven, God is big enough to hold the whole universe in God's hands, and yet close enough that God is the air we breathe. And that was, of course, one of Kathy's points with the word Yahweh, Yah-ha-vav-he, or Yah-he-vav-he is kind of the sounds of breath, that God's name is breathing. And she pulled that, I think was that John Gray, the singer, I think?
Yeah.
I never heard of him before, but that's one of the beautiful things about a preaching team is get to expose people to things that you and I've never even heard of, because we have a team of people. We don't carry it by ourselves.
Kevin did a great cover of that Jason Gray song, The Sound of Our Breathing, and it's on Potterville's YouTube page. It's really
I need to check that out. I'd like to hear that, because
it's a fun song. So, Tom, what questions remain as we wrap up this series?
Yeah, I have a really heavy one, because I thought this when Kathy was previewing with us, and this is interesting because I keep going back to Kathy's sermon, because we have a process, we preview it, so you and I hear it ahead of time, we get a chance to give feedback, but we didn't create it. But then I went the extra mile of filming it And then the next thing is like I get the draft from our video editor, Randy Flick, and I watch it again and give any feedback on changes. And then I watch it on, I've like engaged her content almost more deeply than my own at that point. And when she was telling how Joseph Scriven died, that he was found in a like a rainwater, what was it?
Like a water runoff thing or something?
Yeah, like a water runoff or something. And
Yeah.
he had drowned just like one of his fiancées. I couldn't help but wonder if that was a death by suicide. I mean, he had so much tragedy in his life by that point. And it made me ask this, it made me ask a question that it's live today even. Like, if he had died by suicide, did that change anything about the beauty or the truth or the hope in that hymn, What a Friend We Have in Jesus? And it speaks today still, because, you know, there have been people that I've looked up to who have fallen from grace, so to speak. Although I don't think you can ever, that's actually, now I think about it, a really horrible phrase, because I don't think you can fall out of God's grace, or that it's incapable. Don't, you know, God will let you turn away from God. But there have been some mentors of mine who've done really stupid stuff. And it's come out. I don't necessarily mean personal mentors, but like mentors from afar, church leaders, church pastors. And then you find yourself asking the question, what does this mean of their influence on me and the things that I've read, that they've written? And it reminds us that we're all fallible. So you don't hang on to Joseph Scriven. Like, he needed the grace of God just as much as I do, just as much as you do, just as much as John Newton, the worst sinner, needs it. So it's, you know, we're going to get into that a little bit in the next series. But I'm jumping the gun.
Yeah, don't jump the gun on that yet, Tom. I think, you know, we don't have any idea how exactly Scriven died. We don't actually know whether he committed suicide, completed suicide, and we don't know whether he wrestled with mental illness. And I think from that sense, if he was someone who wrestled with mental illness, there are some people who complete suicide, and, you know, they struggle and struggle and struggle, and then finally give into it. And I'm not sure whether I would even call that a sin or what. I just know it's different.
No, yeah, that's actually why. Like, I've learned lately that you refer to it death by suicide. It is a mental illness. And if you're struggling with that tonight, please call the 800 hotline for that. Or we have a counselor at Sycamore Creek, counselor at sycamorecreekchurch.org. Yeah. Hey, Breezy's asking a great question.
She just stole the question that I had for remaining. The question.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. She just lobbed you a softball.
She's on the same page. Breezy and I are totally on the same page about any songs you wish you could have been included. Because that to me is like I feel like we could almost do this series again. Like, there's other great hymns out there, and I don't know the stories behind all of those questions. And so I was just I found it so helpful to hear some of the backstory behind the different songs. And I almost wondered if there are even like some more modern songs that we could do the same thing for. I mean, like, they don't necessarily have to have been around for 80 or 100 years to have a good story behind them. And I think that there are probably some other good songs. Like the other songs, like, I think like there are classics. Like, I think of one is like Great Is Thy Faithfulness.
Yeah.
I'd be curious to know if there's a backstory to that song.
That was a song we had sung at our wedding. My mom sang that for us.
Yes,
it'd be great to know. I don't know the backstory of that
either. Or even, you know, today our service at Woldumar Nature Center concluded with "How Great Thou Art," and there's a bunch of hymns that I would love to hear the backstory on. But I even think of some more modern ones, and I think of like we sang "Blessed Be the Name" today at Woldumar. Is there a story behind that one? I know that I'm trying to remember. I think it's a Matt Redman song about coming back to the heart of worship.
Oh, yeah.
Has a story where his church like shut down worship for a while, and then like when they reopened, that was the song that they used, and it was just a reminder of how important worship is, and to worship together. And those kind of stories, they just give added meaning to the songs that we sing, I think. Do you have any other songs that you'd like to hear the backstory on, go deeper into the lyrics, Tom?
Well, I guess the song that we sang today would be focused on, but it's really short. Your message was like half the length of a normal message. It as well. And that song has particular resonance with me because that song was both marked the lowest point of my spiritual life when I let go of following Jesus. That it was a recognition when I heard that played how it was not well with my soul. And I looked inward and I just saw darkness and meaninglessness and hopelessness. And I fell apart in the middle of an auditorium at Wheaton College, put my hands in my face, bent down just in tears because everything that I believed and had held to was gone. And I looked at life and it felt meaningless and hopeless. And eventually what I realized when I left believing, I stepped over into unbelief. Part of the reason that I stepped into unbelief was because I couldn't find certainty. And when I stepped into unbelief, I realized something very important. There's no more certainty in unbelief than there is in belief. It's just that I noticed for the first time really clearly that on the side of belief was meaning and hope. And so I made a conscious decision to believe in spite of my uncertainty. And I stepped back into faith as an intellectual, conscious decision. And then I found that faith in Jesus was faithful. Jesus was faithful to provide hope. And now I listen to that song and it's amazing. Like it pulls me back to that moment, but then in more of a moment of gratitude for that really deep period. I could never have imagined that in that moment that I'd be able to listen to that song and think. So yeah, I would have loved to go deeper into that song. Plus I was running video this morning, so I didn't even really get to listen to your message very well.
Okay. Well, again, I think that's also on YouTube if you want to go check it out, Tom.
Yeah. Except one of the cameras went out, so we only got you from behind. I did
record it, though, and there's a recording of it.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So
I will have to do that.
And it's on the messages playlist on the Potterville YouTube page.
Yeah.
Well, Tom, we have another series that's going to start this upcoming week. I know it's a series that you're very excited about because every time I talk to you about it, you light up. So can you tell us a little bit about our next series?
Yeah, we're doing, I feel like we ought to just play the roll-in video.
Okay, play the roll-in, okay.
Although I'm not sure how we're going to deliver on this hype. Our video editor, Randy Flick, made this video just for us because this is a series we're building from the ground up, from scratch. We're not borrowing this from anybody. We are using a book, but to our knowledge, nobody's preached in this way before. So this series is called Ancient Rivalries, and here's something to get your heart thumping. Oh yeah.
Oh my goodness.
You're not going to have to bring the energy on that one.
We are definitely going to have to bring the energy on that one.
All right. So what I love about that roll-in video is that it sets the bar high for you and me for really making a topic that to make the topic engaging. This next series is yeah, we do this every week, right? We try to. We work really hard at doing that.
Yes.
But this next series is what we call belief series, and we're going to give Mark and me 4 weeks to sort of geek out on beliefs and certain things like what do we believe as Christians? Why do we believe them? What's the history of our beliefs? And we're going to do that through the lens of Saint Augustine, who is a 3rd or 4th and 5th century church leader from North Africa, and his rivalries. There are 4 big rivalries that he had through his life. And we're going to look at each one of those 4 rivalries. And the thing is, like, St. Augustine is probably the most influential Christian thinker outside of the New Testament writers. So you got Jesus, you got Paul, you've got like Peter and Jude and James. And, right after that, as far as influence in the Western church, is St. Augustine. And so these 4 big rivalries that he had, they continue to define the parameters of arguments we're having today. And you may not even know the influences of the ways that that Augustine is influencing how you think about different big questions of life. Like, where does evil come from? Well, St. Augustine had a lot of arguments with his rivals about that question. And his answers probably, somewhat, they're going to surprise you in some sense. And then, like I mentioned earlier, like, what happens when Pastor Mark and Pastor Tom are not perfect? Does all of our ministry to people around us, does it just, burn up in ashes? And Augustine had an argument with an ancient rival about that. And so I'm super excited. I just saw the first edit of the first video, which we filmed. It was a conversation sermon I filmed with David Lalone from South Lansing on MSU's campus in front of Sparty and other major images around campus. And Mark, Randy makes us look so professional. I mean,
he does. He's amazing.
Yeah. So
I feel like when you're talking about MSU, I need to add a Go Green in there.
There we go. I'm just going to let that stay silent.
You are, huh? Okay. Does Duke even have a Go Something chant?
Yeah, it's called We Win.
Oh, okay.
Except, of course, we didn't even make the tournament this last year, which was,
That's right.
It's always good to root for a team that makes news when it doesn't win. Anyway, so here we are. This is rivalries, right? Like we understand rivalries. So we're going to pull out some ancient rivalries that continue to play out today in the church and across religions. And I'm super excited about it. It's going to end the last week with Baptism Sunday. We're going to go back out to Woldumar like we were this morning. And if you're interested in being baptized, reach out to us. Let us know. We do have some preparation stuff that we would like to prepare you for baptism, but we'd love to baptize you on the last week in June out at Woldumar, probably in a big water trough.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's what's coming up. I am so stoked about this, Mark.
It's going to be fun. It's an opportunity to make both, I think, history and theology come alive for us and see how much it influences our lives still today. I think most of us are just not even aware of how much influence that Augustine has had on what we believe. We'll figure that out.
I actually read Augustine's book, The Confessions, in a senior year literature class in my high school, a secular high school, just a public high school, huge high school. I had 3,000 students, and that's just sophomore, junior, and senior, 3 grades. Freshmen were still back in junior high. And I read Confessions because his book Confessions is the first autobiography, or thought to be the first autobiography in the Western world. So we were reading it as significant literature for just the Western world. Now, I have a goal in this series, which I, in some sense, any Blue series, but especially this one, and that is, if you don't find the topic engaging, I'm at least going to entertain you along the way. So, you know, I'm pulling out all the stops creatively with our video editor and everything we're doing. It's going to be an awesome series.
It will be. Well, one of the things my kids always reassure me that their favorite teachers are the ones who are passionate about their subject, and their enthusiasm and their excitement for what they're talking about is infectious.
Yeah.
And I think my goal for this series is that both of us would carry that enthusiasm and infection, and people would be like, yes, this is so cool. Tell me more about Augustine.
That'll be awesome when people say that. And we're actually so we're doing it through a book called The Mestizo Augustine, which is, I'm just going to leave. You're going to have to wait till the first message to hear that. But it's written by a Cuban American historian, Justo Gonzalez, and it's part of our commitment to do books and series by people who are not white men. So this is what Justo does, because one of the ancient rivalries and what continues today is Africa and Europe, and so you're going to see that sort of racial bicultural dynamic played out each week. So. Yes, next week.
Mm-hmm. So Tom, I'm excited about this series because this past week I was talking to a colleague and telling him about it and telling him about the book by Justo Gonzalez, and he left our conversation and went and bought the book.
Yes.
And I was like, yes, this has got me so excited. So hopefully that, again, our enthusiasm will be contagious.
Yeah.
Well, do you have any final words for us, Tom, for tonight?
I didn't come with anything particularly prepared at this point.
You didn't? Okay.
No.
I don't think I do either. I think we'll call it a wrap on How Sweet the Sound.
It is almost 9:40. We've gone 8 minutes longer than we intended to.
Well, you and I get chatting about theology stuff, and
yeah,
you get excited about Augustine, and we could have predicted this. Yes. Well, thank you to everyone who joined us tonight. And thank you, Tom, for managing all the tech on your end. I just sit here and ask questions and talk with you, and you're doing all the tech stuff while we're on here.
I'm going to play with all my toys.
Yes. I hope that people have a deeper appreciation for Amazing Grace and for the love of God and what a friend we have in Jesus, and it as well with my soul through this series. And I encourage people to continue to look deeply at the lyrics of the songs they sing and to get meaning from those. And we'll see everyone next Sunday for the start of this Ancient Rivals series. Anything else, Tom?
That's it.
That's it? Okay. It's a wrap. Good night,
curious, everyone. Be creative, be compassionate. Peace out.